Here we go. Coming down in 3, 2, 1. What's up, football world? It is Bucky Brooks, and this is the Bucky Brooks Show. And today we're going to talk about all the new coaching hires, all the movers and shakers, guys moving new locations. We got a general manager in the building with the Raiders, and we have to talk about the Houston Texans moving on from their offensive coordinator. But before we get into the coaching news, let's shout out our sponsor, Bet Online. Continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, and UFC, Bet Online is the number one sports betting source for the new year. From touchdowns to three-pointers and hat tricks, Bet Online has you covered on every game, every play, and every stat. Head to Bet Online today, and don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Whew, lot going on since we last got together. As much as I want to talk about the AFC and NFC Championship games, we would get to that, but we got to talk about the news and what is going on with the coaching carousel. The Jacksonville Jaguars shook up the world, made a huge move this week by first firing Trent Baalke after Shad Khan had come out and kind of expressed a little support over the job that Trent Baalke had done over the years. Doesn't about face after potentially not being able to get the type of head coaching candidate that he wanted to be interested in the job. He fires Trent Baalke after Liam Coen had turned down an opportunity to come to the Jaguars for a second interview. It was thought that Liam Coen was going to go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as the highest paid offensive coordinator in the league. Trent Baalke is removed from his position. Lo and behold, there's a dark period for about 24 to 48 hours. And now the Jaguars have a new coach in Liam Coen, who may have a strong say in who is going to be the general manager. Along the way, Liam Coen evidently hurt some feelings in Tampa Bay because he agreed to come back and then went dark for a little bit and popped back up and decided that he was the Jaguars head coach. Let's address all of this at one time so we can kind of just have a real discussion on what took place. What took place was Liam Coen wasn't interested in going to the Jaguars if he had to work with Trent Baalke. There must have been a conversation that was had that kind of expressed that sentiment, and Shad Khan had to make a decision on what he wanted to do. Did he want to keep the general manager and maybe take a candidate that was not one of the hot candidates and settle in that regard? Or did he feel strongly enough about Cohen's ability to transition from offensive coordinator to head coach, to fix the quarterback, to jumpstart the offense, and to get the team back into playoff contention and move on from the general manager? Well, obviously, now that Liam Coen is the coach of the Jaguars and Baalke is out, he opted for the coach. And I'll say this about Trent Baalke. It was very divisive in terms of how the fan base felt about Baalke. He had been there for 5, almost 6 years. This would have been his third coach that he was hiring. And there were people that were worried about his ability to get this team up and going. The free agent class last year was not great. None of the marquee names that were brought in really popped or resonated with the team. And outside of the draft, like people were excited about the draft, Brian Thomas Jr. coming on board, there was just this sense that the team wasn't constructed the right way to have a sustained level of success in Jacksonville. While I can kind of see both sides of this, I will say there's some really good players on the roster. There's some guys that were drafted, that were brought in, that are some core players that will continue to be core players under a new regime. And Brian Thomas Jr. is a star, and some of the other players that were taken have an opportunity to be really good players. The free agent class kind of being a dud, that certainly hurts Trent Baalke, on top of the fact that there appeared to be some discord just in general, right? It had been a reputation that preceded his arrival, and it's a reputation that continues to exist about maybe Trent Baalke not playing nice in the sandbox. I don't have any stories for you, but I can just tell you what the reputation was and why some coaches paused before considering the Jaguars' opportunity. Now that he's out, is really an opportunity for the Jaguars to do a full reset on their front office and coaching staff. Liam Coen takes over as the head coach, offensive-minded head coach, so you're guaranteed that the system is going to remain the same while Trevor Lawrence is there, as he's just beginning to make some of the major money on that contract extension that he signed a year ago. You also kind of have like a different perspective. Liam Coen comes in from Tampa, but also he has spent time with the LA Rams. LA Rams have had a lot of success during time. They're one of the teams that people point to as a standard for building a culture. He brings some of that. Now, he's not Sean McVay, and we don't know if he can replicate some of the culture building things that Sean McVay was able to do, but he certainly has seen what it should look like when operating at the highest level, just like you could have said about Doug Peterson. The thing that you worry about and the thing that you want is, okay, he has 5 years in the National Football League from an experience standpoint, 1 year as an offensive coordinator. Is he ready to run the entire thing? I mean, that is a huge jump and it's a big transition for someone who hasn't spent a bunch of time in the league. Can the Jaguars find a way to support him, to help him as he goes through the growing pains of being a new head coach? More importantly, can they help him identify maybe a right-hand man in the personnel world that can help him build a roster that he envisions when he looks at this team and says, this is what we need to do to be a championship caliber team in the AFC. To do that, man, you have to move swiftly, quickly to be able to get this done. I would like to say before the combine, but the draft is coming. Like, you have to move quickly to figure out who is going to be the personnel czar if you're going to make a move in terms of, hey, we need to hire a general manager before we really get into these draft prospects and free agency. Or are you comfortable with Coen working with interim GM manager Ethan Waugh to figure out, hey, let's build this team like this. And then once we get past the draft, let's then make decisions on what the personnel, the front office, and those things look like. On the field, I'll say there has to be a lot of excitement about what Coen brings. He continued to help Baker Mayfield progress. Baker Mayfield had a career year. We saw this offense continue to play at a high level. They were explosive despite losing Chris Godwin in the middle of the year. That's the testament to Coen and being able to really craft the X's and O's to help the star players get out. The running game really popped and surged. It has a physicality and a toughness to them. And after their bye week, I mean, they were one of the top rushing teams in the league. That speaks to his ability to make adjustments, to be able to evaluate the team, to take the evaluation and implement some things that would get a better result. You got to love that part of what he brings, because part of a job of a head coach is to be a problem solver. Can you solve the problems? Can you identify what the problems are? Can you provide solutions? And then can you put those solutions into play? He's shown as a coordinator that he can do that. Now that you're dealing with the entire team, can he take that same approach to help this team kind of end what has been like a real rough 18-month period where the team hasn't played great in 2 seasons back to back? I'm interested. I'm curious. I know he has some energy. I know he's a very creative mind. I know he's excited about the opportunity. And so I'm excited to see what he does. Most important hire for him, who is going to be the defensive coordinator. The defense, man, was in the pits, struggled mightily to get stops, to not give up big plays and those things. Whoever he brings in as the defensive coordinator will be the biggest hire on his staff, because if he can get the defense right offensively, the Jaguars should be competitive. I would say even better than competitive, given the talent that they have on that side. So Jaguars make a move, hire a coach. And then we got to keep an eye on Duval to see who is going to be the new general manager, with a partnership with Coen looming in the horizon. Next, this was a surprise today. I mean, it was a surprise when I heard it. I thought maybe it could happen, but I didn't really envision it happening. Pete Carroll is back in the National Football League after a year away, and Pete Carroll takes on over the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is one where everyone initially is going to talk about Pete Carroll and his age. Can an old guy have enough energy and juice to do the dirty work that you need to turn around a program? Moreover, can he do it in a division that is loaded with, man, top coaches, where there's not an easy game? You have to be able to do it, and you have to do it while tackling a roster that doesn't have a quarterback. In Pete Carroll, I would say that, man, you're getting an optimistic culture builder, a guy who has done this multiple times successfully. First, when you think about what he was able to do after he reinvented himself following a disappointing tenure in New England, he comes back and he becomes the head coach of USC. And after a year there, this program rolls. They dominated LA. They dominated the Pac. They eventually won multiple national titles. And they were, fun to watch, fun to be around. The energy was ridiculous. And he embraced all of that. Now he steps into a situation that's very similar in a way to what he inherited when he went to Seattle. He goes to Seattle. He makes Seattle the cool team. He gets a bunch of young, unheralded players to play at high levels. And then, man, they kind of become the story, the fairy tale story that every executive aspires to be. They are homegrown. They figure out how to get it done. And they become a team that becomes the bully of the 2010s. Enjoyed a storied, intense rivalry with the San Francisco 49ers back when Jim Harbaugh was there. It now gives them an opportunity to go into Vegas to rekindle their friendship, which should be fun. Can't wait to see that. But more importantly, it really gives Pete Carroll an opportunity to build a culture for a franchise that needs a culture, that is needed an identity, that needed a grown-up in the room to show them how to go about doing their business. In Carroll, you get that. You get someone who has been at the top of the mountain a couple of times, first in the pros, then in college, but you have someone who has a clear blueprint that he follows to get his team up and running. And when we talk about what he typically does is, it's going to be about the players. He's going to make sure that the players are first and foremost in everything. It's also going to be about creating a very competitive environment where every day guys have to earn what they get. Going back to my time when, right when he took over, he had this thing in the awning when the team ran out. It was called Earn Everything. And it was just kind of the theme of the year. But I just remember seeing that and how bold that was to be able to tell your team, everybody has to earn it. You got to earn everything. Don't assume anything's going to be given to you. Earn everything. I think you'll take a similar mantra when it comes to the Raiders to get them up and going. When I look at the Raiders and the pieces of the puzzle, there's some pieces, but they need more, and they need more continuity in terms of how they're building the team. You think about the defense, they're going to have Christian Wilkins back. They're going to have Max Crosby back. They have some other young players that you can build around, but they're going to need more. You think offensively, there's some decent dudes, but you still have to have an infusion of talent. Brock Bowers is the guy offensively. He's just a straw that stirs the drink, but you need a quarterback. Maybe Russell Wilson answers the call as the bridge to the future for the Raiders. But when it goes beyond like the personnel and those things, when it comes to Pete Carroll taking over the Raiders, I think it's the understanding of how big the brand is. This is a guy who had a major brand at USC, and he made it the fun place to be. I think he would take a very similar approach with the Raiders in terms of making it fun, making it one where the players always want to be around, always want to engage, love being coached and love competing. If he does that, you're really talking about a sleeping giant in Vegas in terms of being able to lure and attract free agents, being able to develop the young players and put them on the field, having a willingness to do that. And then finally, embracing the challenge of really dealing with a very competitive division. No easy wins when you have the LA Chargers, the Denver Broncos, and the Kansas City Chiefs all qualify for the playoffs. You are the fourth team in the division against playoff teams. How can you level the playing field? That is why you go and get an experienced coach like Pete Carroll, who has done this on multiple occasions, because he knows he's done this. He's going to have a blueprint. He understands what is needed, what's necessary, what we can put off. And then he knows finally how to create a winning environment and a team that is ready to play at a championship caliber. So you got to love that. What I also love about this move is general manager John Spytek coming over. He comes over and signs before Pete Carroll signs, and then a day later he takes over as general manager to assist Pete Carroll in his efforts in rebuilding the team. This is about connections, and all of these things really have been about connections, just like in the business world. Spytek was Brady's former teammate at Michigan. When he went to Tampa. Spytek reportedly helped Brady when it came to the extra film study that he would do. He kind of would do the advanced scouting for him. And in watching him present, watching him discuss, like with vivid detail, the scouting report and those things, Brady had a feel that maybe this guy would be a really good evaluator, a really good person to talk to as a potential general manager. Obviously, it worked. It clicked. He'd said enough to really convince Brady to make the move. So he hires John Spytek. He then adds Pete Carroll to the mix, and they have a new regime in Las Vegas that is really ready to take on the world. How this works out, look, they talked about Pete Carroll signing a 3-year deal with another one for a 4-year option. I think 3 years is enough to kind of get this thing up and going. It's also enough for maybe you to identify a coach on the staff that could take that over. Watching how the Raiders build out their staff is going to be fascinating because somewhere in there has to be a succession plan established to allow this thing to continue to go. Because why would you jump into something that's a year or 2 years if you are the Raiders? This, to me, has long-term written all over it. It's just a matter of how do you structure it to ensure that it's going to work and it's going to work for the long time. Last thing about Spytek. It's important for everyone to understand that he was on the staff in Tampa when they convinced Bruce Arians to come out of retirement to take that job and eventually build a Super Bowl champion. At the time, Bruce Arians was 68 years old. So these are guys who believe in experience, are not worried about the age. They believe that the experience brings the expertise needed to pull off a turnaround. We'll see if Pete Carroll is able to do it. This last one, man, is a little dated. Ben Johnson takes over the Chicago Bears. We heard about it for a long time. We wondered if he was actually going to jump in. And from a personal standpoint, I believe it came down to Chicago Bears versus Jacksonville Jaguars. And what Ben Johnson essentially said is, I would rather have Caleb Williams than Trevor Lawrence. So now that he has Caleb Williams, what does he do with him? How does he find a way to really make him play at a high level consistently where he can compete with some of the heavyweights in the division? Can he build out a running game that allows them to hand the ball off a little bit and take some of the pressure off the quarterback to make all of these plays? Can he find a way to streamline the passing game to allow Caleb Williams to play, I would say, fast and free to, showcase some of the things that he used to showcase when he was at USC and became the number 1 overall pick? Can he coach Caleb Williams hard and kind of eliminate some of the bad habits that we saw, holding onto the ball, some of the question decisions that he made under duress, all of those things? So there's a lot that goes into this. And listening to him, I can say that I appreciate him talking to the building and challenging the building to up the ante when it comes to the culture. He also dealt with the other people around the building and had some of the players there, and he kind of established what they want to be from a cultural standpoint, how it's going to take them some time, but they want to compete, they want to get after it and all that other stuff. He also had a chance to see who he would be dealing with in terms of the personnel and what do I need to fix and how can we get this up and going. If he takes anything from his Detroit Lions experience outside of the culture stuff that you need to build, it has to be put your resources into the offensive line. It is one of the reasons why the quarterback hasn't played well, because he's always on the run because it's leaky in the pocket. I would expect Ben Johnson to focus on the offensive line, add another running back that can be dynamic, make sure he hires a defensive coordinator that can be aggressive but safe, meaning they play a good brand of team ball, but they kind of put pressure on you because they're so consistent and reliable in what they do. You have those things going, you have a chance. Final thing I'll say about Ben Johnson, because everyone has kind of anointed him as the guy. I am just fascinated by how he's going to handle playing his division rivals. He kind of threw out there a flippant comment on Matt LaFleur about beating them twice. I'm sure that'll be clipped and saved and put on the bulletin board when they get ready for them. He also knows he's going to have to go home again and deal with the Detroit Lions. And regardless of needing offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, they still are going to be who they are because the head coach demands that. So that'll be a tough matchup for him. And then the Minnesota Vikings, when you think about if Sam Darnold comes back, if they hand it off to Daniel Jones or whatever they elect to do with the quarterback, This is a team that is going to be 1 year better in the system, 1 year wiser, 1 year better in the system. That should lead to better results when it comes to the overall deal. In the end, Ben Johnson made a decision that was not only lucrative for him, but it gave him an opportunity to have a young quarterback that he can grow. $13 million salary annually, 5-year deal. Can't turn that down. You got to feel great about that. But now that you've made the money, you've made the move, how do you get this quarterback going? Because as much as I would love to say that he's going to be judged by the wins and losses, he is going to be, when I'm saying he, I'm referring to Ben Johnson, he is going to be evaluated and judged based on how the quarterback improves under his watch. If you say that you could rock with him, you can find a way to do it, all eyes on you to see if you can get Caleb Williams up and moving. Speaking of Caleb Williams, I want to talk about second-year pro C.J. Stroud, which then leads me to talk about the offensive coordinator, former offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik, who has been let go by the Houston Texans. A little bit of a surprise. He was a hot coaching candidate a year ago, elected to stay with the Texans. 1 year later, he's out. One of the reasons why, the quick turn of events. I tell guys, if you get an opportunity, take the gig. You can look for pie in the sky stuff, what's perfect, but unless you have multiple offers, it is hard for those things to come around. And Bobby Slowik did not get on the carousel last year fully, and now he is on the unemployment line trying to figure out where he's going to go. Someone's going to pick him up. He did a really good job with the quarterback last year. Offense was a little up and down this year, but expect him to land on his feet and have an upward opportunity to do it. And he will certainly take some of these lessons and apply them as he looks to be a better play caller and offensive coordinator the next time around. And so those are some of the coaching moves and that stuff. But you know what we're here for, man. We're here to talk about who's going to be the winner, who is going to represent the AFC and the NFC in Super Bowl 59. Let's start out with the NFC. Philadelphia versus the Washington Commanders. Philadelphia Eagles are the more talented team. When you look at the personnel on offense and defense, it's overwhelming their level of talent and the gap between their best players and their players and the players from the Eagles. Howie Roseman has always invested in the trenches, so you see a very rock-solid offensive line, maybe the best offensive line in football. You see an energetic and athletic defense with size and physicality that has been enhanced by the presence of Vic Fangio. This is a team that can really beat you up on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage. But it goes beyond that. Offensively, man, they have weapons galore. They have two number one receivers on the perimeter in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They got the best running back in football in Saquon Barkley, leading rush over 2,000 yards. And then they have Jalen Hurts, who is compromised due to injury. But even when he's injured, he is a threat. And you just don't know what you don't know, meaning you don't know how athletic he still feels. You don't know if he's willing to take off and do some of the other things. All of that is on the table. But if he comes back and is even just a little shell of himself, it creates a quandary and dilemma for defense coordinators trying to figure out how to stop the Rams and all this counter gap scheme stuff that they're running. When you look at the defense, I talked about the front line. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, ballers. Second level, Zach Bond, all over the place, trying to find opportunities to get after the pass or to cover someone down to make a big play in the passing game on the ground. He is a big piece of the championship puzzle. He's someone that you certainly need to pay attention to. When we go to the backside, the secondary, I can talk about the young guys, Quentin Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, but to me, it's really the older guys who are really helping them get it done. Darius Slay has been in the league forever, continues to play solid football on the perimeter. And then when we think about the secondary, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, two veterans, two guys that understand how to play, great communications, interchangeable. They can do a lot of similar things. So it allows you to be very exotic in the back end if you choose to, or it allows you to be static with your two deep stuff and make plays. Both players are really good. When I think about the Washington Commanders, I rattled off a bunch of blue chip players when I was talking about the Eagles. The Commanders, man, it is Jayden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and then a bunch of possibles. A bunch of guys that have the potential to be all-stars, but not quite there yet. What I like about that is, man, you can feed off the energy of the young guys. The young guys are ready to play. The young guys are locked in and focused and ready to go. It comes out in how they get down and how they go about their business. The other thing that you see is you see a team that is really connected to Dan Quinn because Dan Quinn brought in some veterans and some vagabonds, as I like to call them. Some guys that have been journeymen that are trying to make their way, but they have made their way and they're playing really well because they buy into the culture. They lean into the things that he preaches, and then they teach the culture to the young guys. And so even though these guys weren't there, they play a little better because the team is connected and that energy allows them to play. That said, on paper, offensively and defensively, they don't really stack up to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have the more talent. The X factor is Jayden Daniels. People are going crazy over the story about him using virtual reality equipment to help him settle in, to help him play at a high level. Knowing the story when he started using VR stuff at LSU, it helped him. And one of the reasons why his final season was what it was, because the game slowed down. He developed confidence. He began to flourish and thrive amidst the chaos because he confidently knew what he was doing because he had seen it before. Same thing happened in Washington when everyone is freaking out. We're seeing Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions fall apart. He is as cool as a cucumber, handling all the stress and the strife. That is a big part of why people like the Commanders. In the end, though, as much as I like Jayden Daniels, I can't give him the nod. The Eagles are better, and typically in these games, the best team wins unless it falls apart. So because of that, I'm going to go with the Eagles. The next game, we go to the other side, the one that everyone has been talking about and excited about. The Buffalo Bills go to Arrowhead Stadium to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Taylor Swift will likely be in the building. This will be fascinating to kind of watch this game. The Buffalo Bills handled the Chiefs early in the regular season, did a really good job. And they are a team that is interesting because they kind of do everything by committee. Josh Allen is kind of the blue chip player. And then around him, you have Deion Dawkins, who can be another blue chip player. But around them, just a bunch of key role players that really flourish in their designated roles. When I look at this team, they win because they have mastered complementary football. This is a team that during the regular season had a plus 24 advantage in the turnover margin. That margin is plus 3 in the playoffs. They have not turned the ball over. That is why they're winning in the postseason. So when I look at the Buffalo Bills, they are very consistent and they're very true to who they are as a team. This is a ball control, complementary football team that wants to allow their star player to make the plays when they're there. But the star player has developed the savvy and he has the experience to know now, I save my heroic ways into those gotta have it situations. So when we're looking at Josh Allen, this is when he'll insert himself into the game as a runner and playmaker. Third down, red zone, end of half, end of game situations, 2-minute drills. He is going to utilize his legs in those situations because he's athletic and a tough guy to bring down. In those moments, that's really when you see him become the superhero. Outside of those moments, he's become a very efficient playmaker, and they have what I call a playmaker by committee on the perimeter. Khalil Shakur, Amari Cooper, we can talk about Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. They all kind of have different roles that they play. Shakur is the number one receiver in terms of like targets and receptions and all of that, but it's a really balanced receiver core. So it's hard to really figure out how to allocate your resources because all of those guys are impact players, meaning they can be a part of the progression and they will get enough targets that you have to make sure you pay attention to them. Offensive line is solid. Talk about only surrendering 14 sacks. So if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, like how are you going to get there? How you can get home to Josh Allen? The big thing is going to be, can the Kansas City Chiefs get Josh Allen to the ground? A lot of people get around him. A lot of people bump off of him, but there are few that can get him to the ground. Kansas City Chiefs have to get him to the ground. When we flip that matchup over and look at the defense for Kansas City, man, Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, triple threat at linebacker, Lou Chenal, Drew Tranquill, Nick Bolton. They make plays. Trent McDuffie on the outside. Just to read, they're good on defense, man. And Spags is going to heat them up. He's going to pressure them. He's going to bring pressure from everywhere, critical moments, because he's trying to play for splash plays. Splash plays. Sacks, tackles for loss, turnovers. That's what Spags wants to do. And in the clutch, he's going to bring the pressure. Now let's talk about the Chiefs offense versus the Bills defense. Chiefs offense, pedestrian, major disappointment. Everyone talks all the bad stuff about them. But when you look at the last 6 or 7 games, Pat Mahomes hasn't thrown interceptions, kind of been on his game, doing a really good job taking care of the ball. We see him utilize his legs, much like I advised Josh Allen to utilize his. This is how Pat Mahomes does it in the playoffs. Third down, he's going to run. If it's there, end of game situation, he's going to run and make plays. Got to have it. Games on the line, he's going to utilize his legs and the improvisational ability to make things happen. Now, he doesn't have the ability to lean on a collection of playmakers on the outside, but he certainly can lean on Travis Kelce. They play sandlot football forever. No one can stop their two-man game. I do not anticipate it stopping in the AFC Championship game, because in these games, it's about your stars and how your stars play. DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, they'll be around. They'll make some plays. Xavier Worthy's the unknown that you have to worry about. This is a big-time player, reverse, gadgets, explosive plays. Speed is real. They'll try and pop a big one to him early. Offensive line is the biggest question mark that you'll have. Joe Tooney having to go out and play tackle, not his natural spot. Can he hold up? And can they run the football? Can they run the football with Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt? They haven't been able to run it consistently, but that's going to be a big challenge for them. The Buffalo Bills, man, just a bunch of blue-collar workers clocking in, clocking out. This is a team that is really solid when it comes to the way that they play together, connected. They play on a string. They get after it. The energy's there. The effort, the execution is there. They don't beat themselves. I told you that this is a team that wins in the margins with the turnover ratio being plus 24. That means that the defense is absolutely balling. They were third in takeaways during the regular season with 32. They do a great job of not surrendering big plays, and then they run to the ball. We saw a week ago, Terrell Bernard knocked out the ball on a fumble. If this team plays like they play, they absolutely can go on the road and win in Arrowhead. The problem is the Chiefs always win these games. Pat Mahomes 13-2 at home. Look, they've been to 4 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, and I'm supposed to pick against them? Nah. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles. Those are your matchups in Super Bowl 59. So this was fun, man. Got a chance to riff. Got a chance to talk about the coaching hires and those things. Next week, we'll be back at it. We'll talk about the fallout from the championship games, and we'll begin to discuss some of the things that I'm going to be doing as I make my way to the East-West Shrine Bowl to see some of the players that are going to be notable in the draft. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe to all the things that we're doing at Believe. Make sure you leave a thumbs up when you do the review, because we want to make sure that you're locked in. But until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks, and this is the Bucky Brooks Show.